What am I going to do if I don't get any questions? Now, we don't want to be the presenters who do what? Immediately dive back into their presentation because they got silence. We want to see if we can actually get a couple of people to say something, to pop out a bit. Can we do this? Can we take about 30 seconds or so, and with your partner again, figure out one thing you could do? Now, obviously, I've got some ideas. I mean, look at all that white space, right? But I believe you already got them. So what I want you to do is, with your partner, figure out at least one thing you could do that would potentially get your audience to talk. So take a minute here and figure it out, okay? Okay, who, give me one idea now. What do we got?
I usually say, typically I get this type of question.
Okay, so one of the things we can do is if we don't get a question from them right away, what we do is we ask ourselves a question, or we throw out our own question. So as Kendall was saying here, I might say that the last time I presented this, one of the questions that I got was, and then what do? I give myself that question. Or I say that, you know, I'm sure one question that some of you have is, and I feed myself another question. Really what you're doing, you're saying, okay, if you don't have any questions for me right away, let me give myself a couple. And so sometimes what that'll do is that'll start to do what? That'll start to get some momentum going on here. Also, I can raise a question that I what? That I want, that I might not otherwise have gotten. So one thing I can do is I can ask myself questions. What would be another thing I might do? What?
We were discussing you could also prompt them by reflecting back on a part of the talk that was often perceived as complex or difficult, and maybe trigger some ideas around. I used maybe. I just noticed it.
Okay. So instead of saying, oh yeah, bring it down and focus your request. See, well, one of the things that we often do is we just throw it wide open. What we say is, does anybody have any questions about anything? And right? So we figure what? That is going to net the maximum number of questions. Do you know that actually nets the fewest? Yeah. See, what you have to do is you have to kind of narrow it down and say, do you have any questions about, first of all, the budget? See, and then you ask about that. Or do you have any questions about that part where we talked about the procedures? See, what am I doing? I'm starting to narrow them down. Do you know that actually pops more questions even though you're narrowing? As opposed to throwing out this huge net. Does anybody have any questions?